Fox News refuses to cover the January 6th Selfie Fest hearings on its flagship network, which is the, of course, most ultimate sin in the world, because we need to have everybody thinking about that day once again, 5 months out from the midterms. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that and where they're trying to go with that. Matthew McConaughey speaks in front of the White House telling you that you don't need the gun that you have. So we'll talk just a bit about why his opinion is supposed to matter. Hunter's laptop. More details come out about that, including a lady on there who is apparently an adult worker getting $20,000 of federal stimulus for her small business, which apparently allegedly was hooking. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Don't worry, this is going to be safe for the AM radio still. And the U.S. has confirmed that military hackers are conducting cyber operations in our elections. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome to midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So we're trying a new background music station here because it came up in my suggested, and it says it's copyright free. Of course, you know I'm going to be checking the notes after this and going and seeing what's happening on that. A couple things that are going with this. Number one, a couple announcements before we get started. Number one, I am paying for the audio platform still, which means I'm going to try to do something a little bit different starting on Monday. I might experiment with it actually through here as well, because it usually takes a good 24 hours for especially a longer stream like ours to process through YouTube, which is typically where I get the source material to go and put stuff up on the audio platform. I am going to try doing a manual record of this. I'm going to see if I can do it on Audacity. The problem with doing it through Audacity is the good part is that Audacity might not pick up the background music. The bad part is it won't pick up the video either. If it won't pick up the background music, it won't pick up the video. So, I don't know. I'm going to do some experimenting. I mean, OBS has got a little button right down here. I'm pointing to a screen that you can't see, but they got a little button right down here that'll do the record as, right along with what we have going on over here. Right along with what we have going on as far as... I'm losing my train of thought. It is, I don't know. I worked 9.5 hours yesterday, so that's why I'm a little bit late here and trying to get my thoughts jumbled together here. But yeah, I can come back and record that and then just flip it back out to audio. And I don't know that I'll be able to get it done before work every day, but I mean, it's something that you can look forward to in the afternoon after I get done with work. If I can get it to go work and get it to stay there. I've done it a couple times with this program before, but yeah, I mean, just like I say, throughout the week, it's just sitting back and waiting for everything to process. So that might start hitting the audio platforms again if you guys would prefer to get stuff through the audio platforms. I mean, if this was still a 20-minute show at 7 o'clock in the morning, I would have no problem getting it onto the audio before I go to work. But, you know, well, wait till you see the top of the stack. My goodness. But since we have that, that's what we have going here. But let's get into the news. I think that's the only announcement I had, actually. So, let's see what we've got going on here. Starting with the Dow. Oh, by the way, before we get started, too, that's the other announcement. Do make sure you go check out Turns and Pages Productions. All the creators that are going to be on the website there. The Daily Ignoramus, The Porch Boys, The Already Conservative, and The Breakdown with Birkenhoff. Go check all of them out. As we get started, let's get into finance for the morning. All right, looking into the Dow stayed up throughout the day yesterday. It actually dumped off right at the beginning, but it kind of flirted around with the previous close, and then right around there, it just started climbing back up throughout the day. But, you know, usually when you look at something like this and see futures down almost immediately the next day, we see that there might have been some honk honk with that. But, I mean, they're never going to tell you that there was honk honk, but you know, we've got people selling. They don't want to be into this market anymore, and it's starting to show. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Looking at the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin had a fairly significant tumble in the early morning today. It climbed back up almost to where it was, and then it just dropped again. Not as far as it did before, but we are back up to $30,378 US per Bitcoin. So, again, if you bought the dip, you came up a little bit, but, you know, still not nothing to write home about. So we'll see what happens with that. The gas is remaining steady, and we'll see what happens with that and where OPEC goes with that as well. But as for right now, in the Madison area, the Quick Trip is at $4.54 in Madison proper. The Woodman's is at $4.59. The other Woodman's is also at $4.59. Costco in Middleton out on the west side is at $4.59. Going into Sun Prairie, Quick Trip, and Costco and Race are all at $4.63. The next Quick Trip in Madison proper is up to $4.64. And then getting out of town, the Cenex in Albany, which is about this neck of the woods, is at $4.64. And the Mobile in Cobb, which is southwest side, far southwest side, is $4.69. So these are the Madison area gas averages. Your area may be different. It may be higher. It may be lower. But this is slightly lower than what the national average is right now, too. So we'll see what happens with summer travel and where that goes. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow futures fall after a bullish market action. Tesla to buy batteries from top EV rival. From Ed Carson. Dow futures fell slightly early Wednesday, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, while the 10-year yield moved back above 3%. The stock market rally responded bullishly Tuesday to another target earnings warning, rebounding from early lows close to solidly higher. China EV and battery giant BYD will supply batteries to Tesla, a BYD executive said on Wednesday, after months of speculation that comes as BYD vehicle sales pass Tesla's. Vertex stocks, Alta Beauty, Zim Integrated Shipping, Albemarle, Ashland Global Holdings, Timken Steel, and Chevron are stocks in or near buy zones. Vertex Pharmaceuticals, Alta Beauty, and Albemarle are in handles. Zim Integrated Shipping is flirting with ASH stock. Is flirting. ASH stock is below an official buy point. Hey, punctuation matters, Ed Carson. Ashland Global Holdings stock is below an official buy point, but arguably actionable now. Timken Steel broke out on Tuesday, while Chevron is holding in a buy range. The relative strength lines for these stocks are at or near highs. The RS line, the blue line in the charts provided, tracks the stock's performance versus the S&P 500 index. Albemarle is on the IBD leaderboard, while Ashland is on the leaderboard watch list. Zim Integrated Shipping is on the IBD 50. Chevron is on the IBD Big Cap 20. Vertex Pharmaceuticals was IBD stock of the day. So that's what they have to say with that. Let's look in at the BYD Tesla deal. BYD will supply batteries to Tesla, a senior BYD executive said in an interview with state-owned TV, according to CNEVPost.com. No word as to what that's going to do, especially with U.S. sales, or how those are going to perform, because remember, they're buying batteries from a competitor. While few details were given, the detail is a major validation for BYD as a battery supplier to third-party automakers. Tesla has relied on battery giant CATL for its China-made vehicles. There have been rumors for months that Tesla would use BYD Blade batteries, which are a specialized LFP battery. That comes as Tesla is virtually assured of losing its EV crown in the second quarter at BYD, though the latter includes EVs and plug-in hybrids, all till most automakers in China. BYD reported record sales in April again in May, thanks to its in-house battery and chip operations. Tesla rose a fraction early Wednesday after edging up 0.25% to 716.66. It carries the mark of the beast. On Tuesday, Tesla is well below its 50-day and 200-day moving averages. BYD is not yet active in the U.S., but rose in the Hong Kong Hang Seng. Shares dipped 0.5% to 38.12 on Tuesday. BYD has rallied strongly for the past 4 weeks, nearing a 41.34 buy point from a deep cup base. Dow futures fell 0.4% versus fair value. The S&P also declined 0.4%. The Nasdaq dropped 0.25%. The 10-year Treasury yield rose back above 4 basis points to 3.01. Crude oil climbed 1% to $121 a barrel. Chinese internets continue to rebound overnight amid economic and regulatory optimism. Intel fell modestly as Citigroup said it expects the chip giants to warn on Q2, citing recent management comments. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. I've got a couple more finance articles to talk about here. Some things that are going to be affecting you, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. The stock market could soon see a massive change to how it functions. From CNN's Allison Morrow, the agency that oversees Wall Street is weighing major changes to the way millions of everyday investors buy and sell stocks. That could be bad news for so-called free trading apps like Robinhood, as well as the lesser-known firms that underpin their business models. Today, when you buy or sell a stock on an app, the trade appears to be instantaneous, but beneath that simple buy-sell action is a complex web of Wall Street players exploiting tiny differences in price to rake in huge amounts of cash. Here's how it works. When you tap buy or sell, Robinhood, or your broker of choice, takes your order to a firm known as a wholesaler or market maker. The middlemen, who are supposed to get you the best price and pay the brokers for the privilege of executing the trades, they typically make pennies off each transaction. That process is known as payment for order flow and has come under intense scrutiny by regulators following the fallout from January 2021 run-up in meme stocks like GameStop. The GameStop frenzy exposed how rigged the U.S. equity markets are to enrich big Wall Street firms, high-frequency trading firms, and brokers at the expense of Main Street retail investors. Better Markets CEO Dennis Kelleher wrote at the time. The SEC has been reviewing the system, which accounts for the bulk of brokerage's revenues. In August last year, Robinhood stock tumbled after SEC Chairman Gary Gensler said that an outright ban of payment for order flow was on the table. So this is their proposed rule. One proposed new rule, the paper said, would add more competition at the middleman level to ensure retail investors are actually getting the best prices in that scenario. Orders will be routed into auctions where trading firms would have to compete to execute them. I don't know how that would work. I understand where, they were thinking that places like Robinhood are making big money off of this, or were, before the short squeeze phenomenon that we saw last year. Apps like Robinhood were making bank off of this, pennies off a transaction, with people making thousands of transactions left and right. It's one of the most popular apps out there. But also holding the order until maybe something comes lower or until they can get back into there, and making the difference off of what the person paid on the app. So, I don't know. A spokesperson for Robinhood didn't comment specifically on potential changes, but pointed to research from MIT that shows retail investors saved more than $17 billion in trading fees thanks to free trading apps in 2020 and 2021. From the most part of it, this looks like this is a way to enrich the stockbrokers who are probably donating to big politicians and other regulators on the SEC to make sure that nobody moves in on their competition. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from CNBC, talking a little bit about what we saw with Target yesterday. Target expects squeeze profits from aggressive plan to get rid of unwanted inventory. From Melissa Repko. I've got this feeling that Target's going to be putting a lot of stuff on sale in the next few months. Not that you should give any money to Target in June, but regardless. I mean, I do understand the fact that not everybody is so rich that they can pick and choose where they go to shop. Trust me, I would love it right now if I could run back out to Walmart, but I cannot ideologically get behind it. But with prices being the way they are, man, do they have some nice prices on stuff. From Melissa Repko. Target warned investors Tuesday that its profits will take a short-term hit as it marks down unwanted items, cancels orders, and takes aggressive steps to get rid of extra inventory. The retailer slashed profit margin expectations for fiscal second quarter to account for a wave of goods winding up in deeply discounted or on the clearance rack. Shares closed on Tuesday at $155.98, down 2.31%. We thought it was prudent for us to be decisive, act quickly, get out in front of this, and address and optimize our inventory in the second quarter, take those actions necessary to remove the excess inventory, and set ourselves up to continue to be guest relevant with our assortment, CEO Brian Cornell said in an interview with CNBC. I wonder if I can go over to Target and get a Keurig for like $50. By taking swift action, Cornell said Target can fend off further pain and make room for merchandise that customers do want, such as groceries, beauty items, household essentials, and seasonal categories like back-to-school supplies. He said the company's stores and website are seeing strong traffic and very resilient customers, but one who no longer shops popular COVID pandemic categories. We want to make sure that we continue to lean into these categories that are relevant today, he said. Target anticipates its operating margin rate for the second quarter will be around 2%. That's lower than the outlook it gave less than 3 weeks ago, when it anticipated its operating margin rate would be roughly around the first quarter operating margin rate of 5.3%. So, something to watch for, and maybe worth going onto the Target website every once in a while and saying, hey, is that thing that I want on sale? Maybe. But that's what we see coming out of Target and on the food aspect of things. Then we'll get into the main topics. Drought severely affecting California rice crops. From Adrian Moore, out of CBS 13 Sacramento. Severe drought is taking a severe toll on California rice crops this year. Some call the impact on farmers in the surrounding communities catastrophic. Photos of the Barrett family rice fields in Maxwell should be seeded and flooded with water this time of year. Instead, they're empty. It's what farmers call fallow. This is the first time in 4 generations that we're not farming rice, Brian Barrett said. The California Rice Commission said crops are still being planted, but exact numbers would not be known until the end of May. The Bureau of Reclamation reportedly allocated 0 water from Lake Shasta to farmers south of the San Joaquin Delta. Today, Lake Shasta is below 50% capacity, a historical low. They're not letting anybody use water for their farms, Barrett said. Barrett is planting rice on leased land in Davis. Like on most fields planted this season, he has access to groundwater and the infrastructure to pump it. We'll succeed even if we have to water with a garden hose, he said. I want to try and grow rice. I know it's difficult, and I know it's got to be flooded all the time. And I might be too late already. But Barrett has some serious fears for future crops and the economic data. These small towns, they depend on agriculture, and without the agriculture, these towns are drying up, he said. I mean, it's a ghost town when you get to these small towns. The Northern California Water Association expects the rice industry to lose more than $250 million statewide, including more than $70 million in lost wages. Not only that, do remember that you are going to have these people fighting over the same rice bags, which is going to drive the price back up. So, and this is an older story, but this is from all the way up in May 12th. But this was big enough that the Daily Wire decided to comment on it yesterday. So I decided it was prudent to come back out here so we could pay attention to. And again, the biggest problem with this is we're not going to know about this until September, October. When the stuff is harvested and sent out to the stores, and there's not as much of it sent out to the stores. So again, I say, if you see that $1 rice bag in the store, grab one. Every time you go, bag of rice, can of Spam, or bag of beans, can of Spam, can of tuna. Preserved meats and high calorie density food, just in case. And as our beanie wearing friend used to say when I used to listen to him, hey, if everything goes fine and everything goes well, then we'll have a really cool taco night one night. But that's what we see off of that. Let's get into the main topics of the day. Actually, before we even get into some of the main stories off of this, I wanted to share this. This is a Twitter thread that was going around yesterday. And it's kind of showing some of the ideas that are flowing around the nation, where people are trying to conflate and make anything off of a third party into something untenable. So there's a thread that's put out by Dr. Haz, who is at InfraHaz on Twitter, that says, an anarchist should be treated the same way as an Azov. Basically a Nazi. The fact that Marxist-Leninists in the West do not comprehend this and think anarchists are fellow leftists is one of the main things holding them back. Well, see, that's your first problem, is that anarchy and leftism are diametrically opposed. Haas continues. Anarchism is genocidal nihilism and bases itself on nothingness and individuality. Marxism-Leninism is, in Lenin's words, based on the treasures of mankind and bases itself on civilizations, cultures, and histories of people. Anarchists reveal their genocidal mentality by dismissing all civilizations as oppressive to the individual, revealing their individualistic colonial view of what constitutes a people. They think people is just a sum total of special snowflakes. Meanwhile, almost all humanity believes a people is deeper reality than the individual. The anarchist thinks All humanity is wrong and illegitimate, and their latest trend is to co-opt indigenous tribes as realizing their model despite this being wrong. And then, of course, they have to bring racism into it. In a racist way, they say indigenous people don't have a civilization. That's wrong. Almost all indigenous tribes do possess civilization and oppression of some kind. The anarchoid is a creature of degenerate liberalism and has nothing in common with any substantive humanity. I mean, that's kind of the point. The anarchists kind of just want to be left alone. The anarchoid claims it's absurd to accuse them of being state assets since they represent negation of state. But every negation is tied to the determinate principle that it negates. Independence from this principle is only achieved in negation of negation, a new one. In this way, anarchists who seek to abolish everything are tied to the status quo. Pure negation does not arrive at anything determinate except for the objection of negation by default. Anarchism is just criminal excess of the bourgeoisie state itself, part of the status quo. So basically it's coming down here and saying, in a roundabout way, the anarchist is the infidel and must be destroyed. And he wants to talk about anarchy being the genocidal nihilism. I don't know. I thought you guys would enjoy that. All right, let's start with Fox News. From Insider. Fox News primetime programs, including Tucker and Hannity, won't air full January 6 public hearings, delegating live coverage to the business network. From Lauren Frias. Fox News Channel's primetime programs will cover the first public, does it say they will? Oh, okay. That's why I'm confused. I'm like, the headline said that they won't, but now they say they will? Okay. Fox News Channel's primetime programs will cover the first public hearing related to the January 6 riots as news warrants. The network said in a press release. Instead, Fox News hosts Brett Baer and Martha McCallum will anchor live coverage of the Thursday primetime hearing on Fox Business. The House Select Committee investigating the attack at the Capitol will hold its first primetime hearing on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, with most major networks planning to cover the proceedings during their regularly scheduled programming. The hearing is scheduled to take place at the same time as two of Fox's top-rated shows, Tucker and Hannity, hosted by conservative hosts Carlson and Hannity respectively, both of whom have previously condemned the January 6 Selfie Fest as a whole. The Selfie Fest panel previously asked Hannity to cooperate with his investigation in the Capitol attack. Last year, Carlson also released a 3-part documentary on the Selfie Fest, which was riddled with errors and fallacies. This is not an objective news piece, just so you know. They come back out here and they tell you, oh, well, we are the objective name of news, and they say, 3-part documentary, riddled with errors. No. If this was, and I would accept this as an objective news piece, had they stopped right here and just eliminated the sentence. But I know that you have an agenda at this point. And, I mean, we know that there's an agenda to this entire thing. The coverage of the Selfie Fest hearing on Fox Business will be offered to Fox broadcast affiliates and live streamed on Fox Digital and Fox Nation per the release. So, what is happening here right now? Well, first and foremost, most of your House proceedings take place during the day. Most House proceedings, especially something like this, that would be live streamed, and we've seen this with the confirmation hearings. I know that's the Senate, but I mean, we've seen this with the House panels. We have seen this with them questioning Zuckerberg and Dorsey when they pull these people up there. We've seen this with the impeachment. The impeachment trials all happened during the day. This is happening in prime time. For a reason. Because they don't care what's going to happen about this. They're looking to get sound bites out there. Again, so this is all back into fresh into people's memories, and so they can start releasing ads. And people can come back and say, oh my God, I saw that on TV. It was so horrible. This is all political theater. And if Fox doesn't want to show it, then that's on them. I kind of don't even want to see it, but I'm probably going to watch it just to say, hey, what are they trying to spin this as, and what are we going to be talking about in the morning? But really, realistically, I don't care about the government investigating itself over its own operation. So, and we will be talking about this as news wardens, but it's really going to be a lot of this. The Daily Wire reports. They prefer their sedition made fresh on site. Critics rage over Fox News' plan to air January 6th committee on Fox Business. From Virginia Kruta. And look, there's that face. There's that face that cares about you guys. There's that face. She wants to make your life better, whether you like it or not. Critics blanketed Twitter with complaints and insults upon learning that Fox News opted not to replace its primetime schedule with the live broadcast of the January 6th Selfie Fest hearings. Instead, Fox announced plans to provide full coverage of the hearings on Fox Business and on the streaming platforms, but that did not stop a whole range of vocal critics from sitting Congressman Adam Kinzinger, Democrat Illinois, and Ted Lieu of California, to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton from bashing the network. Stelter fired off a series of tweets announcing the decision and claiming the failure to air the hearings in their entirety on the flagship network revealed priorities. Stelter. Fox News makes it official. It will not show Thursday's 1-6 hearing like all the other major networks. Tucker's show will air as usual. Carlson promotes conspiracy theories about the Selfie Fest. Calls the committee illegitimate. It is. And ridicules the committee members. Fox's top anchors will be moved over to the Fox Business Network, and they'll cover the hearing at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ordinary night. Fox News has more than 3 million viewers, while Fox Business has under 100,000. That pretty much says it all about Fox's priorities. Stelter concluded by conceding that Fox had issued an official statement saying that the main network's primetime lineup would in fact cover the hearings as news warrants and preempt Gutfield in favor of a 2-hour block of coverage provided by Shannon Bream, Martha McCallum, and Brett Baer. But still, critics lambasted the network. Thought I had something else on that one. Oh, yeah, I do. If you work for Fox News and you want to maintain your credibility as a journalist, now is a good time to speak out or quit. Enough is enough, Kinzinger tweeted. Fox News has released a statement confirming it will not be airing January 6 hearings on its network. Host of the progressive podcast America Rises Up, Andrew Wortman, tweeted, claiming without evidence that Fox anchors had assisted in inciting the Selfie Fest on Capitol Hill, and calling for network to be stripped of its ability to broadcast. Fox anchors not only helped incite the attack, but they were in contact with Trump's chief of staff during it. It's time for the propaganda channel to be taken off the air. And I mean, we're going to be seeing a lot of this going into the midterms too. A lot of this shit right here. It's time for this propaganda network to be taken off the air. Translation. We can't compete with this, so we need the government to come back out and compete with it for us. Hillary Clinton added, Fox News won't air the January 6 hearings because they prefer their sedition made fresh on site. The Lincoln Project took their fingers out of the asshole of a young underage boy, and suggested, they started tweeting and suggested that some at Fox were scared of what viewers might see if they allowed the hearings on air. CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN are all covering the January 6 hearings live. Fox News is the only major channel that isn't. Why won't Hannity and Tucker and Ingraham join the rest? No opinion, no editing, just real-time coverage. Because they're scared of what their viewers will see. Lou also suggests that fear was what was driving the network, adding, "Why is prime time? Fox News scared to show the bipartisan." It is not bipartisan. Cheney and Kinzinger are pretty much Democrats at this point. January 6th committee hearings. And, by the way, Whoopi, too, got into this. Virginia Kruta tweets out, "All right, I heard you." Whoopi shuts down guest host Lindsey Granger for daring to suggest the average American just might be more concerned about food and gas than another play-by-play of the Selfie Fest. Let's listen.
Watch that. So people understand exactly what happened. And so what is the smoking gun here? What is the breaking news?
Well,
I know,
what
but
we're waiting for.
People will turn in once the Department of Justice says, okay, here are the charges.
Well, I have to disagree with you there.
Let me finish. We want some criminal charges if that's what you want. That's what we'll see next. We're not even going to see that in these 9 hearings.
No.
And then if we think about the actual intention of this, there's a sentiment that Democrats need to rebrand this midterm message, right? So by airing this, you're going to remind everybody like, hey, Trump is aligned with other conservatives, and even though that's not always true, there's plenty of people who spoke out against this. And so now, reminder, don't vote for these people in the midterms because you want to keep the majority. And I think that that is a losing message by looking in the past and not looking in the future, because there's things on top of mind for people. There are things like feeding your baby, which I talked about yesterday. There are things on top of mind like people wanting to know if a recession is looming. There are things on top of mind like wondering how to pay for your gas.
I think Americans are smart enough. I think Americans are smart enough to be able to have more than one thought in their head about what's going on. Hold on. Now, you just, I heard you. I understand. But I think that we do a disservice to the public when we suggest that they're not thinking about those things as well. They are. And Americans know. Here are the things that are going on, but we also want to know that when we go to sleep, we're not going to wake up in some new country. And I think people want to know that, and they want to see that somebody is doing something. So I think we're going to have to watch and see. Yeah. We're going to have to watch and see. None of us have none of us have crystal balls. That's got
to
see. Right.
To see what's coming. None of us will know. Yeah. We won't know until Thursday.
Well, the reason I think when you raise the thing about people have more, they're thinking about their meals, inflation, baby formula, I agree. And then I stop and say, but without a democracy, this could so easily become what Ukraine is going through, what Russia is going through, where it could get worse than it is right now if we're not watching. Yes. Because you don't want this to repeat itself.
And just very quickly, because I know we're out of time, you know, you say that the Fox News.
I actually kind of really wonder what Sunny actually had to say, because it sounds like she was going to make another big counterpoint off of this. But Lindsey Granger brings up a lot of point, and Arwell actually brought up a good point too. It's that not necessarily liberals, because they're very authoritarian, but the political left in this country, they live on fear. But they don't want it to be that fear. Remember, there is a fear in this country of where the next meal is going to come from. There is a legitimate fear of, am I going to be able to go and see family before they pass away? A lot of families, a lot of parents, a lot of grandparents retired to Florida from various places across the nation. Hey, can I get on a plane or get in my car and go drive down to Miami and see Grandma and Grandpa one more time before they pass away? Will it dig into my food budget, which is stretched to the line right now because food prices are going crazy, and they're going to go even crazier. And yes, and as Granger said, this is just going to be another play-by-play of stuff that we all all watched. It's nothing but a reminder. That's all that it is. I'm kind of glad they put that in there. You know, I was watching Next Generation last night before I went to bed, and it was the episode where Q became human, and Guinan, who was played by Whoopi, came out and stabbed him in the hand. And I was reminded that before she was completely hateful, Whoopi actually used to be talented. Whoopi used to be entertaining. And now she's just hateful and angry all the time. From the Blaze, New York Times spills the beans on the purpose of the January 6th committee's primetime hearings to refocus voters' attention. And that's exactly why I titled this episode of Contemporary the way that I did. Because the gun control thing is already failing. People are going out and buying more guns. People are realizing, especially after Uvalde, and we'll be talking about that with a Uvalde native in just a moment, but especially after Uvalde, once we realize that the police are not going to run in and help us, that they need to be responsible for their own defense. And something like this could happen at any time. This gun control thing backfired. Spectacularly, I might add, but it backfired. And this is to go back and refocus. And remind everybody, the Republicans who want to preserve your freedom, who want to lower prices, which they won't be able to do anyway because, it'll be a stalled Congress. They tried to overthrow the government. From Chris Enlow. The New York Times has spilled the beans. According to the so-called paper of record, House Democrats are hoping congressional hearings related to January 6th will help them overcome their dire midterm election prospects. And I knew when they started the committee, by the way, that they were probably going to trot this out around midterms. That's why they've had the committee since March of last year, but only are now having a hearing about it now. And even now, I think that it's too early. The New York Times, a former newspaper, reported on Thursday that House Democrats want to use the hearings to refocus voters' attention on January 6th, with the purpose of connecting Republicans directly to an unprecedented plot to undermine democracy itself. More from the Times. With their control of Congress hanging in the balance, Democrats plan to use made-for-television moments and a carefully choreographed rollout of revelations over the course of 6 hearings to remind the public of the magnitude of Mr. Trump's efforts to overturn the election and to persuade voters that the coming midterm elections are a chance to hold Republicans accountable for it. It's an old meme, and people used to say that the old meme was, for Republicans, every day is July the 4th, and for Democrats, every day is is April 15th, tax day. But yeah, it really has, the meme has shifted now, and for Democrats, especially right now, every day is January 6th. The story, which paints Republicans in a bad light and Democrats as righteous truth exposers, importantly noted that voters are most concerned about the economy, sky-high inflation, and record-high gas prices. Still, the Times quoted progressive political operatives who claim the hearings will persuade voters to support Democrats in November. Shockingly, the story exposed how Democrats have met with networks about carrying the hearings live in prime time and have even scheduled more than 90 watch parties. Those who attended a watch party in Washington will be rewarded with free ice cream. Oh man, are you serious? Yes, they want this on the front of everybody's minds. The House committee investigating January 6th, which is comprised of 7 Democrats and 2 more Democrats, is aiming to deliver the equivalent of the Watergate hearings for the streaming era, the Times reported. That is why the committee has retained James Goldston, the former president of ABC News, to lead the TV production efforts. The political theater will begin Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Major cable TV networks are expected to air the hearings, thus usurping their regularly scheduled programming for which advertisers pay. The committee is expected to air 6 episodes, all produced by Goldston, that will run between 1.5 and 2.5 hours, according to the Times. However, the committee has released few details about who will testify or what new evidence they will present. Instead, Democrats on the committee, like Jamie Raskin, have made vague hyperbolic claims that what will be presented will blow the roof off the House. Unfortunately for Democrats, a new NBC News poll released on Monday showed that fewer and fewer Americans believe that former President Trump is responsible for January 6th, which is why they want to go back out and paint the narrative. But yes, this is all political theater. And now from the other side of the aisle, from Fox News, Republicans launched counter-programming to January 6th committee hearings with Stefanik, Scalise, and Jordan media event. From Tyler Olson, House GOP Conference Chair Elise Stefanik is leading an event with House Minority Whip Steve Scalise and Reps Jim Banks and Jim Jordan as Republicans prepare their counter-programming for the January 6th Selfie Fest's first televised hearing. The 10:45 a.m. press conference on Wednesday is set to be a show of unity by two high-profile members of the GOP leadership and two Republican House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected from the committee. Jordan himself was subpoenaed by the committee along with a handful of other members, including Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California. I'm working closely with President Trump, Leader McCarthy, Jim Jordan, and my colleagues to help House Republicans in pushing back against lame duck Speaker Pelosi's sham political witch hunt, Stefanik told Fox News about the event. House Republicans will be all over the airwaves, setting the record straight, telling the American people the truth, sharing the facts and asking the real questions like why is Nancy Pelosi the only person off limits from the investigation, Stefanik also said. Stefanik's event will be one of the many events and media appearances for her and the other top Republicans as she takes a central role in pushing back against the investigative committee. The Selfie Fest committee was formed last summer by a select committee by the House of Representatives after talks broke down for a bipartisan commission. It has spent nearly a year investigating the cause of the attack on the Capitol by a mob of former Trump supporters, including through subpoenas to dozens of Trump associates, campaign workers, and more. So, we will see what happens. It's about to be another big political Washington, D.C. circus. And we'll be talking about it right here on this program. All right, from my neck of the woods, going into the gun violence thing. From WISN 12, Wisconsin DOJ identifies suspect in targeted shooting in a hit list. From Courtney Sisk, the Wisconsin DOJ investigators identified the suspect accused of killing a retired Juneau County judge as 56-year-old Douglas Uday. Law enforcement said retired Judge Raymer was found zip-tied to a chair in his home, shot dead. They said that Uday was in the basement with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. He is currently in critical condition at a local hospital. It happened at Raymer's home in the township of New Lisbon on Friday morning. The discoveries didn't stop there. Law enforcement officials say they found a hit list in Uday's vehicle that included Tony Evers, our governor, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Whitmer's chief of staff released a statement confirming she was on the list and said in part, Governor Whitmer has demonstrated repeatedly that she is tough. She will not be bullied or intimidated from doing her job. Evers was at an event in Milwaukee on Saturday. 12 News asked him if he had the same perspective Whitmer's staff displayed. Well, again, I'm not going to comment on whether I was on the list or not on the list, but nothing is stopping me from doing this job, Evers said. It makes me frankly sick to my stomach. It's just abhorrent to our judiciary and the leadership of our state and country. 12 News discovered the connection between Uday and Judge Raymer dates back at least 17 years. Court records show Raymer sentenced Uday to prison in 2005 in connection to an armed robbery case. Man, oh man, would I love to see this dude's online history. So let's be realistic about this right now. So to go after the judge who sentenced him to 6 years, and Evers for the state that he lived in, those made a little bit of sense. But as soon as I saw that Whitmer was on this list, that started throwing off big red lights in my head and saying, hey, something's not right here. The same governess who the FBI pushed a bunch of people to go and plot to go and kill is on this guy's political hit list for a state that he doesn't even live in, and per his parole is probably not allowed to go and visit? Might we think this gentleman was in a Discord server with a certain Buffalo shooter and a certain Uvalde shooter? And again, like I say, if this would have just been Evers and the judge, I'd have like, okay, this guy got sentenced, he went crazy, and now this is going onto the gun control agenda because CNN has nothing else to talk about. But now that I see Whitmer on this list, I think the FBI went out and radicalized another person, and honestly, I'd start to question as to whether or not they shot him as well.
Investigators spend a second day trying to...
Well, we'll see what happens with that. Let's grab one, especially given the fact that he's passed away, from NBC. Just a quick review on that. Suspect in slaying of retired Wisconsin judge has died. The suspect in the slaying of a retired Wisconsin judge, who is alleged to have created a hit list of prominent politicians and others, died after sustaining self-inflicted gunshot wound, authorities said on Tuesday. Douglas K. Udy was named as the suspect in Friday morning's fatal shooting of John Raymer, 68, a former Juneau County judge. Uday was found the day of the shooting with an apparent self-inflicted wounds and taken to a hospital. Apparent self-inflicted wounds. And now he's died in the hospital, and he'll never be able to be questioned about what he did. On a list that included a governor who had no power over his life. I have questions. But this story was in and out of the news in a second, just long enough for white person with a gun to gun down a judge. Evil white man with a gun. All right, let's talk about McConaughey. So I've got a few clips from this and a few articles on this one here. Mostly bullshit. CBS, Matthew McConaughey calls for responsible gun ownership at the White House briefing following the Uvalde school shooting. Let's listen.
We need to invest in mental health care. We need safer schools. We need to restrain sensationalized media coverage. We need to restore our family values. We need to restore our American values. And we need responsible gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them. These are reasonable, practical, tactical regulations to our nation, states, communities, schools, and homes. Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals. These regulations are not a step back. They're a step forward for a civil society and the Second Amendment.
So, aren't you ready to go run out and do exactly what Matthew McConaughey told you? Don't you want to have longer waiting periods, more red flag laws? Aren't you excited to succumb to Matthew McConaughey's whims, you guys? He knows best. He's a celebrity, don't you know? Britt, tweets by Britt, says, I thought this was Matthew McConaughey doing a Matthew McConaughey SNL skit.
We need to invest in mental health care.
Now, as far as the mental health care thing, because that does appear to be what the vast majority of this is a nutcase who was known to the FBI, by the way, and this is going outside of the legitimate thought that I've had, that some of these are perpetrated by the FBI, but we've got a legitimate nutcase who was known to the FBI, who just can't seem to get in and get the help that he needs, probably on a psychotropic drug of some sort, a mind-altering substance, probably from the time that he was 10 years old, who got pushed around and bullied and went over the edge. But as far as the rest of it, hey, what responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals? We just want the ability to shoot them back. If the deranged individual decides to come in to the restaurant that we're sitting in, to the bank that we're in, although that's probably never going to be a reality, there's always going to be that sign outside the bank that says, "No weapons allowed in here." And the law-abiding people are going to not have weapons allowed inside the bank and leave them out in their car, so when the bank robber comes in, everybody's a sitting duck. But hey, that's the way the bank wants to do business. And that is actually understandable entirely. There's a lot of money sitting in that vault. I don't agree with it, but it's at least an understandable position. When somebody comes in to the grocery store, blasting away, most of us just want to be able to fire a couple rounds back. Give ourselves an entire possibility of surviving this. Not a guarantee, but a possibility. Same thing with the government. Oh, you're never going to hold back the government with your pew-pew. Yeah, but I do want to take a couple of them with me when they do decide they want to come back and oppress. Insider McConaughey says GOP's views on gun control address the root of the problem, but we also need to lean into not allowing the bad guy to get a gun before we have to catch him. Yeah, the problem with that is, of course, as always, is who decides. I don't trust this government to decide who should be allowed to have a gun and who shouldn't. That's the problem. Because when they get to decide, they decide that their political enemies can't do it, and hey, then those people are the first ones to get their doors kicked in, and a hail of actual assault rifle bullets planted into their bodies. From Lauren Frias. Throw some music back up here. Matthew McConaughey acknowledged that the GOP's views on gun control make sense, but we do need to lean into not allowing the bad guy to have the gun in the first place. McConaughey has become an outspoken figure for gun reform following the deadly mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in his hometown of Uvalde. He's from Longview. He's from Longview. He was born in Uvalde, but that'd be the same as me saying my hometown is redacted. Even though I have never once held a residence in that town. In 38 years in that city, I have never once held residence. But I was born there. Or 19 children and 2 teachers were killed in the rampage. The tragedy renewed calls from both sides of the political spectrum for action, with Democrats calling for stricter gun policies and Republicans zeroing in on mental illness, school safety, and the gunmen themselves. In an interview with Fox News host Bret Baier on Tuesday, the actor said Republicans are looking at the root of the problem by focusing on issues like mental health and restoring family values and school safety when addressing mass shootings. All these things make sense, he said. That's the root of the problem. The mentally ill people that are committing the crimes. We fix people. then we're probably not having this conversation. But we're not going to fix people. That's going to be a lifetime job after we're here and after we're gone. I do think that there's some things that we can do to keep the guns out of bad guys' hands. Make it harder for them to get them, the actor added. If they have the gun, then we find out that they're the bad guy. Then we have the right to go get it from them. I think we also need to lean into not allowing the bad guy to get it before we have to catch him. That's on Instagram. I might have to go find that one. I'm curious. Sure enough, right there it is. Let's listen.
Actor and Uvalde, Texas native.
Never mind, that's an 11-minute one. We're not going to watch the whole 11 minutes of that. On Monday, McConaughey wrote an op-ed for the Austin American-Statesman outlining the gun control policies he believed could restore responsible gun ownership in our country, including background checks, which we already have, red flag laws, which violate the 4th and 5th Amendments, raising the age to buy a rifle from 18 to 21, which violates so many parts of the Constitution, it's not even funny, and instituting a national waiting period following assault rifle purchases. There's not a choice between guns or no guns, he wrote. It's a responsible choice. It's the reasonable choice. All right. Here is, and I mean, there are even people over on Twitter right now who are continuing to try to push the line further and say, oh, I think we should raise the age to buy a firearm until 25. I was so immature at 21. Well, A, you're immature now. But let's take this to its logical conclusion. Now, the obvious straw man fallacy that the right is coming back with this is children are allowed to change their gender at age 5. They can get puberty blockers at 13. No, that's a fallacy. That's a straw man. What you should be focusing on when you look at this is, okay, if we want to change what the age of majority is in this country, by law, and the government is still, for whatever reason, valid, which that should be going away at some point here in the near future. But if, by government law, we want to change what the age of majority is, it has to be the age of majority for everything. And we've had the same argument when they changed the age for buying vapes, tobacco products, and cigarettes to 21. Is we have to decide what the age of majority is. And we just have one cutoff where you just convey all the rights back to the people. Convey them away from their guardians and convey them to them. So, okay, we want to raise the age to buy a firearm to 21. That means you cannot enter into a contract until 21. You cannot take out a student loan until you are 21. You cannot buy a truck without a parent's co-signature until you are 21. You cannot start a business until you are 21. You can't move out of the house until you're 21. Otherwise, your parents will be found in violation of neglect laws because, according to this, you are still a child. Now, mind you, that's not going to change a lot of things for a lot of Gen Z right now. Just saying. Didn't change anything for my generation either. And hey, while we're at it, let's change the age to driving until 21. And this is the one that'll stop them in their tracks. Okay, if you're going to convey all of these legal rights as adults to adults, then the voting age is also 21. And that's going to stop them. No! We want 12-year-olds to vote! Because they're going to vote on the world that we're giving them all. But no, if you want to do that, then yes, let's take it to its logical conclusion. If they're not mature enough to do this activity, to go and fight for the country, to join the army, to move out of the house, then they are not mature enough to do any of the rest of these things. Vote. Move out of the house. Yeah. If you have to wait until 21 to have your rights conveyed to you, then no, you don't need to be out of the house. You can't get a contract. You can't buy a car. Any of that. It's all 21. In fact, since you're so keen on indoctrination and free this, free that, free the next thing, then yeah, let's go ahead and throw that on and push everything up to 15th grade. Because these people can't be trusted to have the rights conveyed to them. They can't be trusted to make a decision for themselves because they're too immature. You see where this goes, McConaughey? From CNN, McConaughey tells the story of those killed in Uvalde, an emotional plea for action on guns from Kate Sullivan. Actor Matthew McConaughey delivered an impassioned and at times emotional remarks at the White House press briefing on Tuesday, telling the stories of those who died in the elementary school shooting in Uvalde and urging more action on gun control. Let's listen.
We also met Anna and Danilo, the mom and the stepdad of 9-year-old Maite Rodriguez. And Maite wanted to be a marine biologist. She was already in contact with Corpus Christi University of A&M for her future college enrollment. 9 years old. Maite cared for the environment so strongly that when the city asked her mother if they could release some balloons into the sky in her memory, her mom said, "Oh, no, Maite wouldn't want to litter." Maite wore green high-top Converse with a heart she had hand-drawn on the right toe because they represented her love of nature. Camilla's got these shoes. Can you show these shoes, please? Wore these every day. Green Converse with a heart on the right toe. These are the same green Converse on her feet that turned out to be the only clear evidence that could identify her after the shooting. How about that? Maite wrote a letter. Her mom said if Maite's letter could help someone accomplish her dream, that then her death would have an impact. And it would mean her dying had a point and wasn't pointless. That it would make the loss of her life matter. The letter reads, "Marine biologist, I want to pass school to get to my dream college. My dream college is in Corpus Christi by the ocean. I need to live next to the ocean because I want to be a marine biologist. Marine biologists study animals and the water. Most of the time I will be in a lab. Sometimes I will be on TV."
Oh, look.
There are thousands of...
Now we got to go back and talk about the Orange Man. So that's what McConaughey had to say about this, which, number one, if you want to use an actor to make an emotional message, of course I'm going to question the authenticity of it. McConaughey, an Uvalde native, said he and his wife, Camila Alves, spent most of the past week with the families of those who were killed in his hometown. He showed pictures of their artwork and brought to the briefing room the green Converse shoes that one girl wore every day that were used to identify her body after the shooting. She had drawn a heart on one of the toes. He said he needed to tell their stories to show how action needed to be taken to honor the lives of the 19 children and 2 teachers who were killed at Robb Elementary last month. You know what every one of these parents wanted, what they asked us for? What every parent separately expressed in their own way to Camilla and me. They want their children's dreams to live on, and they want their children's dreams to continue, to accomplish something after they're gone. They want to make their loss of life matter, McConaughey said. Fucking puke. Oh, there goes our chances at the AM radio again. Just puke. We have a big-name Hollywood actor who had a professional Hollywood scriptwriter write this speech for him to make an emotional plea to tell you to give up your rights, to defend yourself against all enemies, foreign and domestic. No. I'm going to tell you that right now. No. What else do we have? Yeah, I just have a couple more here. McConaughey says, country on the cusp of bipartisan gun reform after Uvalde. This time it's different. Yeah, Republicans are going to step down and cuck to the Democrats. And, oh no, you Democrats, you just slow down a little bit. From Yale Halon. Matthew McConaughey doubled down on his calls for gun reform in an exclusive interview on Special Report Tuesday after delivering an emotional address challenging gun ownership laws at the White House, where he met privately with President Biden. The 52-year-old actor and native of Uvalde told Fox anchor Brett Baier that his personal connections with the town, where Salvador Ramos shot and killed 19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary last month, compelled him to join the conversation on gun safety reform. I'm not someone in the entertainment industry that decided to swing by for an open cause, McConaughey said on Special Report. This landed on I got the calling. It happened in the town I was born in, so it got very personal for me. McConaughey met with the president and lawmakers on Capitol Hill shortly after he published an op-ed for the Austin American-Statesman in which he called for heightened gun responsibility and tighter gun laws to avoid future tragedies like the one that crippled his hometown. The Fool's Gold actor called for lawmakers to require background checks on all gun purchases, which is a backdoor to a gun registry, and increase the buying age to 21, implement red flag laws nationally, and institute a national waiting period. Well, you know what happens with gun registries? And they've got a list to come back out and take your guns away with. And institute a national waiting period. McConaughey said that he had discussions with responsible gun owners in Texas, many of whom voiced support for the restrictions he outlined. Well, good. You give up your guns first. As for Republicans who argue the country should focus more on mental health and school safety instead of stricter gun laws to eradicate mass shootings, McConaughey said plainly, all these things make sense. See, McConaughey tried to be bipartisan and tried to be center of the road. To try to say, oh yeah, no, just give up a little bit more of your freedom and a little bit more of your rights. We promise this will be the last time. And the last one that I have on this is McConaughey gives away the political left's game on gun control. From Daily Wire News. McConaughey told Fox News during an interview Tuesday night that Democrats want the whole loaf when it comes to restricting the Second Amendment rights of the U.S. citizens, but that they are willing to just take a slice this time. McConaughey made the remarks during an interview with Fox News anchor Brett Baier after he spoke at the White House press briefing earlier in the day. During the interview, McConaughey, who was previously mulled running to become governor of Texas, responded to questions about whether he had political ambitions by saying, I'm not running for political office. McConaughey claimed that this time would be different in terms of getting something done politically to prevent the next tragedy, even though the Second Amendment experts like Dana Lash noted that he was just repeating every studied and proven non-solution the gun control lobby has ever proposed, but he's wrapping it in a veneer of friendly Texas drawl. But the consensus word I'm hearing in the phrase is that this time is different, that there's something more momentum, that on the right, there are some things that they're willing to not staunchly say no to and consider Then on the left, they're willing to say, you know what? We may want the whole loaf, but we'll take a slice of bread, McConaughey said. So I'm told this is a novel thing happening right now, and this is a novel and special time happening right now, where something may change instead of just talking about it, and nothing changes again for another 30 years. No. They'll take the slice, and then they'll orchestrate another shooting at a school and say, oh, well, we need another slice.
All right, so speaking of changing things, to get to the specifics, you've had a number of talks on Capitol Hill. Do you think that this is the time? Do you think that this is somehow different? Because we've been through this before.
Yes.
I've covered a lot of them.
Yes, sir. So, look, I don't have anything to compare it to up here on the Hill, but the consensus word that I'm hearing and phrase is that this time is different, that there is some more momentum, that on the right there are some things that they're willing to not staunchly say no to and consider, that on the left they're willing to say, you know what, we may want the whole loaf, but we'll take a slice of bread. So I'm told that this is a novel thing happening right now, and this is a novel and special time happening right now where actually something may change instead of just talking about it, and nothing changes again for another 30 years.
All right, so talk about the specifics of what you're specifically calling for. You wrote an op-ed in The Statesman, USA Today picked it up, where you laid out 4 basic things. One of them is raising the age.
18 to 21.
For AR-15s.
Yes, sir.
And the like.
Yes.
And here's the op-ed. What else in there?
Oh, well, we talk about background, we talk about red flag, and I also, a waiting period, just to call it a pause after purchase, I think could be a good idea. I know it's going to be a tough one to push across.
Pause after purchase.
But I just know of so many, it's true that so many of the people that don't need a gun in their hands are committing crimes of passion. And that sometimes a pause, hey, get your mind off it. Let your intentions be intercepted by something else over a period of time could stop quite a few of these kind of crimes.
It polls very well, but when you hear Republicans and they push back on some of the specifics, concerns about red flag laws or concerns about that laws currently are not being enforced, what do you say to them?
It's a great point, because look, to start with, let's go back to where the right and where the Republicans, what they're staunch on is, hey, mental health, we got a problem with the people, not the tool. Okay, we're hearing that. We're in values, family values, parenting, well, all these different things that we got to restore those. School.
And that's what it is right there. Oh, let's just take a little bit more gun. Let's take just a little bit more, and then next time we'll take a little bit more. But don't worry, we're not coming for your guns. We're not gonna just take everything. Just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. I'm sorry for the people of the kids in the car who are going to school right now and listening to this in lieu of the AM radio. Earmuffs a little bit, but fuck that. And again, my biggest problem with the red flag, the freedom of speech, stuff like that is who decides. Who decides? Because if you say something, if you have an online history saying Biden is an asshole, oh, well, we think that you might be on a red flag, so, oh, I'm sorry. I guess we can't sell you a firearm. That's a red flag, don't you know? Anna Navarro. Kevin Tober tweets out, as usual, Anna Navarro proves that she has a room temperature IQ. Jonah Goldberg made a factual statement that statistically you have a better chance of your kid dying in a car to school than at school, and Navarro bursts into flames. I've not pre-watched this. I have no idea what she's about to say. But I bet you it's going to be hilarious.
Lanes, you're absolutely right to be outraged about the crime. But if we're going to tell people they should be terrified about their kids being dropped off at school, we should remind them that their kids are more in danger on the drive to school statistically than they are at the school.
Jonah, we can't do this. No, but we can't.
No, but listen, a child's life cannot be a statistic, right? You can't tell the parents of Joaquin Oliver of Parkland. You can't tell Fred Gutenberg.
Yeah, but that's
you
moral
can't
bullying.
tell my cousins.
I'm making a basic point to say that you shouldn't tell people that they should be terrified.
If it were your child, it would not be a statistic. It would be a tragedy that you would never, ever
That's moral
recover
bullying.
from.
Why is it moral bullying?
You're making it sound as if I don't have compassion for these people. Of course I do.
It's a statistic and probabilities that we should
I'm saying you shouldn't
and
tell
live with.
you shouldn't tell the audience that this is the thing, that they should be so terrified paralyzed with fear about their own kids when their kids are more likely to die from a lot of other things.
Hold on, Jonah.
Apparently there's more.
Should pick up the phone and call their senators and
fine.
telling them that it's been 10 years in Sandy Hook and that we haven't done anything is a national shame. So paralyzed with fear and paralyzed with acceptance and resignation is what we've been for the last 10 years. And it's enough of that. No more paralysis. Get your asses in gear and call your senators.
That's fine. I'm doing analysis. I am not doing activism. And if you want to tell everyone to call their senators, that's fine. That's not my job.
The point who got killed at home.
Okay, that's moral bullying.
Wait a second.
Everyone,
Hold on. Excuse me.
I have a dead cousin, okay?
Pick up the.
So there again.
You're absolutely.
Legislate from emotion. Here's an interesting one. Mr. Sulu has kind of also let the cat out of the bag. Our friends over at Twitchy. George Takei shares his crazy thought about AR-15s and inadvertently spills the beans about what gun grafters are really after, or gun grabbers rather, are really after. From Sarah D. When it comes to solving the problem of gun violence in America, we really haven't managed to come up with something that's 100% effective, but maybe that's because we weren't seeking advice from the right people, the experts. To think, all this time we just could have asked George Takei what we should do. Oh well, better late than never. What do you say, Mr. Sulu? Oh my, crazy thought. But those 20 million AR-15s in this country could sure arm a lot of Ukrainians. Oh my. It's so obvious. Have the US government confiscate every AR-15 in America and send the entire haul to Ukraine to arm citizens against a tyrannical Russian regime. Why didn't we think of that? I don't know why that tweet didn't show back up here, but Meth Gator Trainer at Agnosis Paradig 1 says, "You're so close to getting it." C. Swixter says, "So George makes the case for Second Amendment without understanding he's making a case for the Second Amendment." Jared says, "He almost gets the point of the Second Amendment. Almost." You mean the part about armed citizenry having the right to defend itself against a tyrannical government? He might stumble onto it eventually, but that's giving him a lot of credit for being capable of putting two and two together. And quite frankly, that's a really tall order for Takei. And then the other side of this, of what they're trying to do here, Beckett Adams says, "But I've been reliably informed the AR-15 is no match for a standing army." Tabitha the Ginger Snap says, "I was told the AR-15 couldn't fight modern technology." Ranty Amy Curtis says, "They just don't want you to have AR-15s, which are no good against an army or something. But they're totally okay to send to Ukraine, where they could end up in the hands of Russians. Or just in the hands of would-be Ukrainian school shooters, which George would apparently find acceptable for some reason." The Magnanimous Benevolus, WT.F. "So you're okay with Ukrainian children being killed by AR-15s? Weird flex, but okay." Takei should probably take a step away from Twitter for a little while until he can figure out exactly what he wants to, and is trying to say, because right now he seems very confused. Sean Patrick says, "So you admit an AR is a valuable tool for defense?" Alex F. Baldwin says, "Sorry, George, there's no reason for a civilian to ever own a weapon of war." And the last one, the funny one. The AR-15 is simultaneously too powerful for people to have, too weak to be used for hunting, not capable of fighting off the military, and required for fighting off the military. Oh my. From the Daily Mail. Wow, we're up on the clock already. Biden's Homeland Security issues heightened threat advisory because of fears of mass casualty violence if Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. What are they planning? And just some of the subtitles over here. DHS released a bulletin warning of a dynamic threat situation propagated by lone offenders and small groups in the coming months. Threat assessment expires at the end of November, after the midterm races. Shock! Possible targets include houses of worship, government figures and buildings, the media, schools, minorities, and critical U.S. infrastructure. What are they planning? From Elizabeth Alpine, a politics reporter for DailyMail.com. The DHS issued a heightened threat advisory on Tuesday, warning of an increased risk of mass casualty violence nationwide, fueled by extremist ideologies and their personal beliefs. Incidents could be motivated by the looming Supreme Court decision that could wipe out federal abortion protections granted by Roe v. Wade. A draft opinion leaked by Politico last month indicated the justices were poised to overturn the ruling, sparking fierce demonstrations across the country from both pro-life and pro-choice groups. Tensions are expected to boil over the High Court release of its opinions in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health, where Mississippi officials have asked justices to repeal the landmark case Roe v. Wade. The bulletin cites individuals who advocate both for and against abortion, who publicly encourage violence, including against the government, religious and the reproductive health care personnel and facilities, as well as with those opposing ideologies. The High Court scheduled an additional day of releasing opinions on Wednesday, with 33 decisions left in the current term until summer break. DHS also warned that domestic violent extremists could use changes in the U.S.-Mexico border enforcement system as a reason to carry out attacks against minorities and law enforcement officials, just weeks after a judge blocked the Biden admin from lifting pandemic-era expulsion policy known as Title 42. What are they planning something? What are they planning something? What are they planning? You come this early into the summer saying that there's going to be political violence. What is the government planning? And who's going to get hurt? Here's one from ABC 13. Investigation underway after vandals target a pregnancy services clinic. From Christy Kepley Stewart. A clinic offering pregnancy services in the Asheville area was vandalized overnight. The suspects painted the Mountain Air Pregnancy Center building along Old Haywood Road with red spray paint and knocked out the windows and door glass around the building. Asheville police say officers were called to the clinic around 7:20 a.m. Tuesday and found that someone had spray painted the business with red graffiti with the threatening wording, "If abortions aren't safe, then neither are you," and an anarchist symbol in the front of the building. Hate to say it, probably hoax. The Anarchy A usually gives that away because the people who would be perpetrating this kind of thing have no interest in anarchy. They also found the wording "No Forced Birth" on the side. Red paint was sprayed throughout and windows were broken, which occurred sometime overnight on Monday. There must be hate in their heart for them to want to harm us in this manner when they don't even know who we are. We're going to respond out of love. We hate that this happened. We will rebuild and continue to serve this community, said Mountain Area Pregnancy Services Executive Director Christy Brown. We're not going to allow this experience to stop us from the life-saving work that we do. Now, I will completely admit and freely admit that the left is much, much, much more violent, especially in their protests, than the right. But it's the anarchy thing that it triggers a lot of things in my mind of this can't be real, because there is no anarchy. These people are in support of Big Daddy government coming down and doing everything for you. Opinion piece suggests that Democrat drubbing in 2022 may well be the only path for the party to keep control of the White House in 2024. From Alex Nitzberg. Democrats could be cruising for a bruising at the ballot box during the midterm election cycle this year, but Washington Post contributing columnist Matt Bai has penned a piece suggesting that the potential drubbing could actually enable Democrats to cling to the White House during the 2024 presidential election. Bai said that for Democrats, the good news is that getting blown out in 2022 may well be the only path you have to holding the White House in 2024. I'm not saying the costs of a Republican takeover in November won't be steep in the short run. These aren't the conservative revolutionaries of 1994 or even the Tea Party types of 2010. This is the mutant gene version of a Republican uprising, a full-on crazy-eyed dystopian movement of conspiracists and authoritarians, he wrote, while begging the government to come and take your firearms away from you. But everything we know about modern politics suggests that the best way, maybe the only way for a Democrat to be reelected, is to also be the last guy standing between the broad American electorate and the whole of the Republican crazy. Bai suggested that if the GOP had the opportunity to demonstrate the sort of government that they envision, that would make Biden look like Abraham Lincoln by comparison. Bai also said that if Republicans defeat Democrats in November, the election result would curb the power of the Sanders-Warren wing, freeing Biden to pursue the kind of mainstream liberal agenda that the voters thought that they were getting in the first place. What part of anything that Biden has been scripted has suggested that he has any sort of a mainstream agenda? I'll wait. He is under the thumb and the wing of the Warren Sanders wing. He is under their thumb. He is them. Bai contended that rather than spending every free minute trying to hold the whiny factions of his own party together, Biden can give statesman-like speeches in defense of principles that resonate with the broad electorate. Bai said that even if Biden chooses not to run for another term, then the party's best nominee will almost certainly be someone from the outside Washington who can credibly promise to change the culture of the place. That too is much easier assignment when the other party controls Congress, he wrote. Really? Okay. Again. And they're going to try to cite Obama for this when I ask this question. But what in the last 50 years will suggest to you that anybody that the Democrat Party puts up will not be Washington establishment? It might be a governor like Clinton. Clinton was Washington establishment. Well, Barack Obama was only in the Senate for 2 years before he got off of there. Yeah, but he was a lobbyist. He was back and forth between Chicago and the Senate for the entire time. No, they're trying to come out and spin and say, oh, see, we actually planned to lose the whole time because this is what's going to be the best for everybody. It's a good thing. Just don't worry and get out and vote harder next time. Vote harder, Daddy. From Fox News. ESPN's Sarah Spain calls Rays player bigots for not wearing gay pride patch. From Bobby Virac, the 5 Tampa Bay Rays players who refuse to wear the gay pride logo on their uniforms because their religious beliefs are bigots, says ESPN commentator Sarah Spain. That's Disney for you. We had the video right here of Spain getting performative angry on Around the Horn Monday, but ESPN has now made the video unavailable. This is what tends to happen when frivolous class isn't affected by things. Spain begins that religious exemption BS is used in sports and otherwise also allows for people to be denied healthcare, jobs, apartments, children, prescriptions, all sorts of rights. We have to stop tiptoeing around it because we're trying to protect people who are trying to be bigoted from asking them to be exempt from it. When the very people that are bigoted against are suffering the consequences, you say trying to be bigoted. Well, here's the thing. If you force people to be silent, and we saw this with the hardware store in Tennessee, if you allow people to talk, you see what kind of people that they are. The guy with the hardware store in Tennessee with the no gays allowed sign, I would probably not shop in his hardware store if I saw the sign. I would probably not go to that person's hardware store because I know the kind of person that he is. I don't want to hear a speech about how the butt pirates are getting ass blasted and how that's leading to the decline of human society. If I want that, I'll call Stephen Ignoramus. I have his personal number. And ask him, Stephen, why are the butt pirates leading to the decline of human society? I don't want that. So why would I go into that hardware store? But see, when you force people to accept it, to accept the agenda, and stay silent, unpublic, then these people, they put on the pin, they do their thing, they take off the pin after the game, and they go home and say, man, I hate all these butt pirates, man. See, what you force to be shown in public does not always reflect what's happening in private. But hey, everybody must conform, otherwise Sarah Spain will call you a bigot. We are up on the clock, and I want to get through just a few more of these here. So much more! But I got a late start too, because I worked 10 hours yesterday. From the Post-Millennial. New video emerges of Hunter Biden, sex worker, and his illegally obtained gun. From Jared Yeager. By the way, CNN's not covering this. You're shocked, I know. Yet another video has emerged of President Biden's son Hunter engaging in questionable behavior, this time in a hotel room with a hooker and a potentially illegal firearm. Originally released by Radar Online, the clip was recorded on October 17th of 2018 and has called into question how Hunter could have obtained the gun given his drug addiction and mental health issues. Oh, you know how. According to Politico, Hunter purchased a .38 caliber handgun just 5 days before the video was shot. Just like any other firearm buyer, Hunter was required to fill out the relevant documentation. On one of the forms, he was asked, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? As Politico reported, records show Hunter answered no. Despite his well-known history of addiction to cocaine, he was thus given the all-clear and received the handgun. However, he could have said yes on that. He would have been given the all-clear. However, it has not been confirmed that this is the same one he brandishes in the video, taken less than a week later. The timing of the revelations coincides with his father's call on the government to pass laws that would make it harder, if not impossible, for individuals deemed risky to purchase firearms. As the New York Post reported, many did not take too kindly to the president's own son appearing to violate the laws his father was pushing for. Before proposing or passing any new federal gun legislation, the Biden admin ought to enforce existing laws, said Ron Johnson, regardless of who's violating them, even if that person is the president's son. I've written oversight letters to the Secret Service, FBI, and ATF regarding the incident involving Hunter's gun dumped in a trash behind a grocery store and across from a high school in Delaware, he added. Well, I mean broken clock. Ron Johnson gets to be right every once in a while. Not often, but he gets to be right every once in a while. And that's exactly it. This guy has violated federal law. There are laws on the books already, most of which I don't agree with. And by the way, finger in the trigger, Hunter. Get your fucking booger hook. There's the one for the AM radio again. Get the booger hook out of the boom boom button. You dumb shit. Look at that. It's almost as bad as D.A. Binger in the courtroom. But yes, okay. Let's maybe enforce the laws that are already there. Let's talk to the people who were known to the FBI before we add new layers for people to be ignored by the FBI when the FBI wants to go and orchestrate a shooting. Maybe let's go that direction first. From the Daily Wire, Hunter Biden's laptop lady got $20,000 federal stimulus for female-owned sole proprietorship. From Luke Rosiak. Oh, can't read that one. That one's behind the paywall. Let's do these two, and then we'll do something I'm thankful for and head out of here for the day. Justine Lindsay, believed to be first openly transgender NFL cheerleader, opens up about joining the Panthers. Man, am I so glad I quit the NFL. From Ryan Gatos. The most unfortunately named reporter who had to report on this particular story, by the way. A Carolina Panthers cheerleader has made history. Justine Lindsay announced that she will be joining the Panthers Top Cats cheerleading squad, which would seemingly make her the first openly transgender cheerleader. Lindsay initially posted about her accomplishment in March. She told BuzzFeed News on Saturday she was excited to break the barriers. I'm happy because I was able to break down the door and tell people, hey, we're not just sexual beings. We're actually human beings who want to better ourselves. I felt like, why not tell the world? Hey, listen, this is a great accomplishment, she told the outlet. Once the news hit on social media, Lindsay clapped back at some of the negative comments she received on an Instagram post. Thank you to all my haters who think that I'm bringing the organization down. Clearly I don't. The Carolina Panthers organization is an excellent one that supports all people, white, black, yellow, trans, straight, etc. At the end of the day, myself and the other 29 members at Top Cats made the squad fair and square. So, there you go. There's going to be a dude cheerleading for the Carolina Panthers. Man, am I glad I quit the NFL when I did. And I've told you why. Because I used to bleed green and yellow. Like, I was the guy and we review this once again. I was the guy who got up on a Sunday, went to church occasionally. I wasn't really that active in it at the time, and I should have been more. But I went to church occasionally, and then got home at noon and turned on whatever the noon game was on Fox. Hopefully, and usually typically was, because they typically played at the time at noon, although they moved to the 3 o'clock time slot more recently. I got up. And I started the noon game, and then I watched the 3 o'clock game, and then I watched the Sunday night game. And I didn't move on a Sunday, and I didn't stop. I just watched every football game. And then when they started doing the kneel thing, I said, okay, well, I don't need to give the NFL that much attention, but I still love the Packers. God, I love the Packers. So I just sat and watched the Packer game religiously. Every Thursday, every Sunday, every Monday, whatever it was on. I would sit down and watch the Packer game. I would go out of my way to go and watch the Packer game. And occasionally still the Super Bowl. But then, once they started getting into more of the social messaging and more of the BLM stuff, the political lecture and everything else, I said, I cannot do this anymore. And I quit the Packers. And now the social messaging comes down to this. I'm sorry, Goodell. I cannot give your organization any of the ad revenue that would come off of my tablet from watching the commercials from NFL Network. I can't allow you to have that anymore. Which is lame, because I still love the Packers. But when I sit here for 2+ hours every morning and do this, when I sit down for entertainment, I want my mind to be off. I don't want a political social lesson. I just want to watch a bunch of steroided up meat cover robots beat the crap out of each other on the field. Is that too much to ask? Speaking of cheerleaders, the last one, a review from the drag queen thing from yesterday. This is a thread. So we got to follow it all the way back. Charlotte Clymer tweets out, "Could someone please explain to me why in good faith drag queens are inappropriate for kids? Do you understand what drag queens do? Is there a disconnect here in perception that might be eased by having an adult conversation? I'm open to it. Let's talk. This is a serious offer. If you're a social conservative, or anyone really who believes kids should not be in the presence of drag queens, I would really like to know your reasoning. What's the problem?" Peter Segal tweets back, "Not what you're asking for, but to my knowledge, this particular culture war skirmish started by the conservative intellectual Sohrab Ahmari, who got upset by Drag Queen Story Hour in California back in 2019. Quote tweets back out, Sohrab Ahmari, "Yep, I was right then, and I'm happy to see others joining the fight now. It's important to remember which right-of-center figures and institutions, Ryan T. and equivocated when it really mattered." Peter Segal goes on and says, "Sohrab, since you're here, can you answer Charlotte Clymer's question? That is, what is it about drag artists and kids that you and fellow conservatives find so threatening, if that's the right word?" Sarah Elliott says, "For one, completely inappropriate. They're called children for a reason." Clymer tweets back, "You didn't answer the question, though. What, exactly, be specific, is inappropriate at drag shows for children?" Steve Goldstein tweets back and says, "Children should be innocent of sexuality." Thank you! But getting to the crux of it, and the reason that I chose this particular argument over on Twitter to display is, except when it's an NFL game with scantily clad cheerleaders dancing suggestively, right? Then it's an All-American and just dandy. Folks, no reasonable adult is buying this shit. It can't be okay with this in one venue and not another. It stings of hypocrisy. Vuka Lover says, "Here for the ratio," which she got absolutely ripped apart for. She got ratioed so hard for this. But I tweeted back out and I said, well, they shouldn't be doing that either. Really, honestly. The kids shouldn't be down there with their jaws hanging down with the scantily clad cheerleaders, which, by the way, my sports team didn't have, although they did bring girls over from the local UWGB campus to cheerlead for the games. But yeah, no, kids shouldn't be standing there, jaws agape, at the cheer line for the Dallas, excuse me, for the Dallas Cowboys. Being in that Charlotte Clamor voice really kind of tore up on my throat. Hang on a sec. But then I went on to say, but the children aren't on the 50-yard line tipping the cheer squad. And I've noticed network television shows them occasionally, but the instances are fewer and further between. Like, and what I mean when I say that is, occasionally you'll see the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders on the commercial bumper, but they're like not front and center. Furthermore, as other people have pointed out, the halftime shows are completely inappropriate. And a lot of conservative parents are actually calling that out too, saying, we want our kids to be able to watch football and learn the great things about teamwork and camaraderie and competitive sports. They don't need to be flashed with girls in tight little clothing. Nor do they need to see J-Lo out twerking on some unfortunate dancer who's probably got his hips broken from the fact that she twerked on him. And then I went on to remind everybody that I actually didn't even know the Packers had a cheer squad until my first trip to Lambeau, which I didn't. And it turns out they actually don't. They contract with UWGB. And they do wear a much more modest outfit when they do. So that is my take on that. We are out of time for the day, so might have to go and make some decisions on these here because we've got a lot left over, but we've got to head out of here for the day. But before we do that, the last thing we do on a Wednesday is something that I'm thankful for. And there's a lot to be thankful for in the news cycle office. First, the big one for me is I am thankful for the fact that a lot of this gun control thing, it's not going to come here. It might hit Madison, it might hit Milwaukee, it might even hit Green Bay. It is not going to come here. But it's the same thing with this NFL thing that we're just looking at. A lot of the stupid stuff that I'm seeing here, and I've got nephews and nieces who are of a young age. I've got them around. And even like if they're down here, a lot of this stuff just doesn't come here. It doesn't happen here. I live in a relatively small town. Now, you see some of this stupid shit in Janesville, stuff like that. But I try to avoid it. And even there, it's rare down there. I live a lifestyle where my nephews and nieces do want to see this kind of stupid crap that we see off of this. The transgender, the drag bar, and everything. They have to go seek it out. It's not being flashed in their face constantly. I feel like I could raise kids here. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, because I'm pushing 40. But I feel like I could raise kids here and not have to worry. I feel as though it's insulative. Again, something where if they seek it out, they can find it. But it's not something like that. It's harder for the media to come back and brainwash them. So that's what I'm thankful for. Like, I see this all the time because I'm into this. I'm into the news, I'm into the culture war, and I'm into trying to make the news something that is by the people, for the people. But I also seek this out. I'm in a place in Wisconsin, in rural Wisconsin, where if I didn't want to be immersed in this, I could sit down and play video games all day and never have to worry about it again. I could say, to hell with the people in Madison. To hell with the people in City Hall, and to hell with the people in the Rock County Courthouse. And just keep my nose clean and never have to see him again. And I'm glad to have that option. I'm thankful to have that option. I'm thankful that my sister's kids, my brother's kids, that they all have that option too. That they don't have to be immersed into this. That's what I'm thankful for. That's what I'm happy for. And that's what I think more of us need to strive for, to get out of the cities, to get into the rural areas, to make sure that our kids can have that option. Of course, if they seek it out, if they feel like something isn't right, they're the resources that are there for them, but they don't have to come in and say, no, you don't feel right. Stop acting like you're cisgender. And that's what I'm thankful for here. That's what restores my faith in humanity. Let's finish out for the day. That was a good mix. If that does wind up staying, by the way, as not copyrighted, we might have to throw that in the rotation. I like that one. All right, but with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. I am way up on the clock here. I got to throw some clothes on and get to work right away because, yeah, it is 9:40. So I'm going to head out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. Stick around for the raid. We'll see who is on and playing games or doing news or doing something over here on the Twitch side if you're over there. Otherwise, we will see you back here tomorrow morning with more contemporary, more news, and more headlines as we go over more of the stuff here. And plus, we'll also cut through some of the stuff and see what it is we can get rid of. We will see you here bright and early tomorrow morning for more. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.